Hey everybody, welcome back to Gaijin Gaiden. And this time I once again kind of want to talk about buildings here in Japan. Um, a few months ago I read this interesting article. I can't even remember what website it was on, but it was basically a Western guy, I think he was British, who was married to a Japanese lady, and they were building their new house. And basically he kind of went into talking about what it was like doing this. And the interesting thing here is that in Japan, as houses get older, they don't really get more valuable. In fact, what really, according to this guy and other things that I've read have borne this out, that what people typically will do is they'll build a house, live in it for like 30 years, and then they'll just sort of knock it down and build a newer house with a more modern amenities and whatnot. Because it's really not the house that's valuable, it's the land that the house is built on that has the real value. Flipping houses, as we're so used to in America, is only really in its infancy here in Japan. Now, this does make a decent bit of sense if you understand, there's rather unique circumstances of real estate in Japan. That basically land is at a premium because so much of this country is mountainous, and mountains are really not great for building on by and large. So it really is genuinely easier to just every 30 years or so knock the house down and build a new one because, well, to put it bluntly, houses aren't always made of the greatest materials here. Um, Now, me living in Kumamoto, an area that not so long ago was seriously damaged by an earthquake, I've got the chance to see, literally the insides of quite a few buildings and houses around here that are getting knocked down, sometimes due to, well, usually due to the damage from the earthquake, and sometimes due to just sort of the nature of life that, hey, we're going to knock down this building and build something else here. And just sort of looking at a lot of these homes, it is kind of surprising exactly just how honestly flimsy so many of them look. I mean, we're all so used to hearing about, earthquake safety and such here in Japan and buildings being designed to be earthquake proof. Now, in all fairness, the earthquakes that hit Kumamoto and did so much damage here were pretty serious ones. And one also has to keep in mind that if you're talking about older buildings, they're probably not going to be quite up to snuff in terms of, the prevention rules. So you kind of factor those things together. You can kind of see why so many buildings here uh, end up getting heavily damaged. But nonetheless, it always continues to sort of surprise me with how different it is from what I'm used to seeing with houses back in the States. I think I've mentioned in previous videos how insulation is not really a thing here in Japan, which is one of the biggest complaints that foreigners who live here have. I mean, it insulation does a lot to help keep your house cool, and keep it in the summer and cool in the winter. And if you ever end up living in a place that doesn't have insulation, believe you me, you notice the difference really, really quickly. Now, from what I've heard, this is slowly starting to change, but still, it's a place with insulation is going to be the exception rather than the rule here. And as I said, the whole thing with flipping houses is also kind of in its infancy here. But people are beginning to catch on to the idea of the value of this, that it's better to kind of maybe tinker with your house, but not just knock it down and start all over. Something more along the lines of building to last. Um, Again, it still sort of blows my mind that living in like a really old house would be something that would be considered extremely negative here. While a lot of people back in the States, those houses in places like New England and stuff that were built around the early 20th century, sometimes even older, those places go for absolute gobs of money. And again, if you live in a place that's as prone to earthquakes in Japan, as Japan is, well, this certainly does make a fair bit of sense. I mean, the logic is certainly there. It's just, once again, not really what I'm used to thinking of, how I'm used to thinking of things. It also doesn't help. Let me try that again. Me also coming from an area of America, northern Indiana, where earthquakes are basically not a thing at all. In fact, I even remember seeing a TV special talking about earthquakes one time that sort of showed the area I'm from is actually one of the most geologically stable places in the entire world. I mean, no joke. That's how it was shown. Um, so, yeah. And even if today, like I said, they're still knocking down some buildings that were damaged in the earthquake, and even still some buildings that were damaged but are still usable are still in the process of, like, basically, like, now they're getting around to being repaired. Of course, the city was absolutely drowning in desperately needed construction work immediately after the earthquake. And now that we're kind of inching towards over a year and a half since this happened, well, it looks like the glut is finally through and, back to normal. I mean, granted, no doubt about it, the construction business, the construction companies here in town are staying very busy. You only really need to look around Kumamoto to see that. There's new apartments and office buildings going around. From what I've been hearing, there's going to be an enormous overhaul of the city's train station in the very near future. They're going to try and turn it into something really spectacular by 2020, or at least that's the plan. So much of what's going on construction-wise here in Japan is geared for 2020 because, of course, that's when the Tokyo Olympics are going to happen. I mean, granted, Tokyo is a long, long way here, but 2020 and the Olympics are really kind of seen as Japan's big chance to really shine on the world stage and to really get the word out there, get a big boost to foreign tourism to Japan. And in all fairness, foreign tourism in Japan has been going up for quite a while. Kumamoto, where I live, is not the most greatest banner destination, but we still have lots of foreign tourists here, particularly from China and Korea, but of course no small amount of Western tourists as well. And Japan just wants to really bank on that. I mean, the Olympics, well, hosting the Olympics usually does come with its drawbacks. I mean, I've been to Sydney, I've seen the former 2012 Olympic Village, and man, no, I was there in 2012, and I've seen the former 2008, I think it was, Olympic Village. And man, that place was an utter ghost town. I mean, seriously, it was almost creepy how few people there were. And when you consider like the millions of dollars that go into something like that, yeah, it's really a wonder why countries fall all over themselves to host the Olympics. But, well, publicity. Well, nonetheless, I think that's everything I had to say this time around, so thanks for listening. As always, please join me on Twitter at Gaijin Guided, and you can also find me on Tumblr at Gaijin Guided. Until next time, take care and have a good one.